Thank you all for joining us today. We are ready to get started.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Joanna, Regulska, Vice Provost and Dean of Global Affairs and Professor of Gender, Sexuality, and Women's Studies here on our campus. I want to really thank you so much for joining us for the first UC Davis Forum on the UN Sustainable Development Goals. We're actually extremely excited to bring together our campus community today around our shared commitment to this global agenda. Throughout this event, we hope you actually share your questions, ideas, project, hopes for the SDGs on our campus. This is really an important event for us, and we want to really to bring all of us together. So please keep up the conversation going in the chat and send along any questions through the Q&A feature. We have some fabulous Global Affairs staff on our and our SDG interns. So I want to recognize them. So Roshni Desai is here with us, and Alex Jackson, and Bella Buccelli, and Michael Shu. They will be providing information on the chat and making sure we see your comments. As a brief introduction and background, UC Davis is contributing to each of 17 Sustainable Development Goals across research, teaching, service, and operations. This work is happening around the globe with our many international partners, but as well here at home, close to our campus and our community and in the region. And over the past 2 years, we have become more involved with Sustainable Development Goals agenda, developing strategies, building the SDGs into partnerships and initiatives, and finding really new ways for engagement in networks, dialogues, and collaborations. I want to remind you all that the next decade, 2020-2030, has been termed the decade of action. And this is because all stakeholders, including major research universities such as like ours, need to strengthen and expand effort to achieve these very ambitious global goals. So today's forum, which is really the first of 3 that we'll have planned this academic year, is really a very important step to learn, share, and connect. I am very pleased to be joined today by Renetta Garrison Tull, the UC Davis Chancellor for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, and Camille Kirk, the UC Davis Director of Sustainability and Campus Sustainability Planner in the Office of Sustainability. I am also so appreciative of their leadership, passion for sustainable development goals, and a very collaborative spirit. So they are sort of my partners in this efforts with our offices and all our colleagues and staff. Renetta and Camille will be co-emceeing this event with me today, and you will hear from both of them very, very soon. But before that, there's a very special guest today. It's a longtime colleague and friend who is going to speak briefly about the university role in achieving SDGs, Gbemi Disu. Gbemi is the Chief Business Officer for George Mason University Korea campus. So actually we need to thank her for being so early in the morning up because she's joining us from Seoul. Gbemi has been instrumental in launching a new global network of universities working together on SDGs agenda, the University Global Coalition. UC Davis participated in the formation of UGC from the very, very beginning, and we are very actively involved right now. So thank you so much for joining us, Gbemi, today, and I really thank you for starting the day with UC Davis.
Thank you, Joanna. Good morning, everybody. It's my honor to be here today. As Joanna introduced, it's been very exciting to be connected with UC Davis, and we're so impressed with the enthusiasm and commitment to sustainable development goals. As Joanna also mentioned, UC Davis has been part of this initiative, and I'll explain a bit further from the very beginning, from the brainstorming to the formulation and the strategizing behind the impact. We also had the honor of having several people from UC Davis present at our first virtual symposium in September, including some of our co-hosts today, Renetta, Camille, as well as Jolene. So we're basically strong partners. UC Davis has been a very supportive partner, and we're excited and impressed with the work you continue to do in this space. As we all know, there's no legal obligation for universities to be engaged with the SDGs. However, there is a moral responsibility that universities have, and while not all of them are well positioned or interested in participating, many universities globally see this as a strategic part of their mission, um, mostly in the areas of research as well as student teaching and engagement. And this makes sense. Universities are putting out the new group of global leaders, and it's only right that they think about what sort of leaders are going into the workplace and the impact they have, and how these students come out with the sense of how they can navigate the triple bottom line that is key for our future. And so, as some do it maybe because there's also the new rankings by the Times Higher Education, and that impact rankings this year had over 700 universities from about 85 countries. And so there's all these different metrics that also are helping universities be guided into how they can engage with the SDGs. Fortunately, there's not a strong presence of American universities. That ranking for now is dominated by the UK, Australia, and Canada. And so universities from there truly have embraced this notion of the SDGs and have fully integrated it. But we have universities like research universities like UC Davis who are sort of leading the way, Arizona State, and a few other universities in this space. So it's very exciting, and I think the future over this next decade of action is going to see an increase in engagement and reporting of how this engagement works. So then I'll talk a bit about the University Global Coalition that Joanna mentioned. This started in partnership at first at the Commission of International Initiatives with APLU. And since then we've sort of expanded it and have partnered with the United Nations as well as other stakeholders globally to form what we call a collaborative platform of globally engaged universities and higher education associations, working with the UN and other key stakeholders to create a more sustainable future for all. I know UC Davis has the Global Learning for All, and so it's a similar notion of how do we do this in a pervasive manner and engage as many people in what is such an important initiative. So in last September, we launched this Decade of Action initiative, utilizing Brookings format as well with the Rockefeller Foundation, called the 17 Rooms. And in this 17 Rooms University, we did the spin-off, which is called 17 Rooms University, where we take each of the 17 goals and universities can be engaged across the different ways. The University Global Coalition for 2 years in a row with Rockefeller and Brookings has hosted Room 17, which is partnerships, in which all universities are really well positioned to be engaged with. So UC Davis has been again, a leader in this initiative and has chosen to be part of this very important program, and is actually leading Room 2, and so SDG 2, in partnership with Earth University in Costa Rica. And so how this initiative works is each university will co-lead with another global institution, and over the next year, between this year and next September when we have our next forum, are going to engage across student engagement and teaching, faculty research, and partnerships, and do a variety of different programs, projects, initiatives that they will then report out on how those advance the Sustainable Development Goals. So we're very excited about this. We're excited UC Davis is part of it. We think this will really showcase and streamline how universities across the world can collaborate together, and why it's so important for universities to engage with this. So thank you for having me here. I hope I've shed a bit of light as to why the SDGs are important. As we know, it's not just a global thing that is from top down from one Western hemisphere to the South, but a collaboration across both hemispheres to see how best practices can be shared. So I'll stop speaking now and hand it over to you, Camille.
Thank you, Gbemi and Joanna. It's been a pleasure to work with Global Affairs and with the DEI office, Renetta, on this important and urgent agenda, and more recently to get to work with Gbemi as well. Today, we are looking forward to hearing very brief talks from several faculty members and a recent UC Davis graduate. These lightning talks are meant to show what is possible when UC Davis engages with the SDG agenda and to spur new ideas and efforts. I will introduce in the order that the speakers will talk. I'll go ahead and introduce everyone now so that we can give you a little taste of what you're going to hear today. We will also be sharing where you can find more information on their work in the chat. Our interns will be doing that. Christine Kreuder Johnson is a professor of epidemiology and ecosystem health in the School of Veterinary Medicine. She is the director of PREDICT, Emerging Pandemic Threats Program, the director of the Epicenter for Disease Dynamics, and the associate director of the One Health Institute. Just last month, Dr. Johnson spoke at the Sustainable Development Impact Summit of the World Economic Forum on preventing the next pandemic. Very timely. We'll then hear from John Largier, who is the Associate Director of International Programs at CMSI and Professor of Coastal Oceanography in the College of Agricultural and Environmental Sciences. Dr. Largier is based at Bodega Marine Laboratory. Dr. Largier, along with Dr. Rick Grossberg, Director of the Coastal Marine Sciences Institute, CMSI, and Marissa Baskett, Associate Director of Research Initiatives at CMSI, received one of the Global Affairs seed grants in 2019 to support a project on oceans, ecosystems, and people along the west coast of the Americas. After Dr. Largier and Dr. Grossberg and Marissa Baskett, we'll hear from Nisha Marwaha, who received both a bachelor's and a master's from UC Davis in Biological Systems Engineering, finishing in 2020. She is currently a sustainable aquaculture intern at WorldFish, an international nonprofit research organization that works to strengthen livelihoods and enhance food and nutrition security in developing countries by improving fisheries and aquaculture. Then we'll hear from Laura Van Auker, who is an assistant clinical professor in the Betty Irene Moore School of Nursing. Professor Van Auker and colleagues in UC Davis Health were awarded a Sustainable Goals grant from Global Affairs in 2020. The project focuses on global health and wellness through interprofessional education and shared practice with partners in Kenya. Welcome to all of you. Christine, we will have you kick this off. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It is a privilege to come speak with you all to discuss the SDGs, which of course are so critically important as our guide to a better future. I have just a few slides I wanted to share, mostly to just talk about some of the focus. So these are of course all the SDGs, and as a veterinarian, I think it's really strange that I get to say that one of my primary things that I focus on are good health and well-being. But I also focus on life below water, life on land, and through all the work that we all do, and as you know is core to our institution here at UC Davis, we focus on reducing inequalities and improving gender equality. And I'm very fortunate to get to work overseas in many international settings where strengthening those institutions and ensuring technology transfer are really key to the work that, that I embrace. Next slide, please. And so I think it's not lost on any of us now with the emergence of COVID-19 that animal diseases play a huge role in our health. And that's why as a veterinarian, I've been able to cross the boundaries between working on wildlife and working on humans. And this is really how we think these things tend to go. There's often outbreaks in animals that are unnoticed, and they cause outbreaks in people, especially populations that are in close contact with animals in regions of the world where those things don't get noticed as commonly as they should. And those things tend to occur sort of within this forest, as I've got it shown on this slide. And only once in a while does it come to our recognition where we have enough clinically ill people with a specific syndrome, oftentimes occurring in more urban settings where people get access to the healthcare and the diseases get recognized for us to understand that there's the potential for epidemics. And of course, COVID-19 is a really stark example of that. Next slide, please. To just highlight how these things can really go awry. And I've listed here for you all of the human coronaviruses that have been recognized to date. So these are all animal viruses that have jumped species into the human population. Some of them, many of them, like the first couple, 2290 and OC43, have been discovered for decades and decades and just caused the common cold. And a couple of these that were really good warnings, including the first SARS-CoV that emerged in 2002, and MERS, which emerged in the Middle East and continues to cause epidemics there. actually, all preceding, but just take a look. Since 2002, since SARS, we actually have an additional 5 coronavirus that emerged from animals to infect humans. So this is a phenomenon that I think is going on quite commonly. Next slide, please. And this was really the underpinnings for the PREDICT project, as we mentioned. And I worked closely, Jonna Mazet was the director for 10 years, and I took over as the last year as the global director. And it was a huge honor and privilege to work with colleagues all over the world. We worked in 30 countries. This 11-year project was really on the frontiers of disease emergence, strengthening capabilities for emerging threats. It was part of USAID's Emerging Pandemic Threats division, and our whole goal was to improve technology for early detection of zoonotic viruses. Next slide, please. And so we really, with that project, developed a collaborative disease surveillance workforce. Next slide. That is really important for pandemic preparedness. But probably most importantly, we had a both top-down and bottom-up approach where we worked with colleagues in government engagement. The communities were leaders in emerging infectious disease detection, as well as recognition and ultimately what to do about it. And this is really where we started to learn how you can manifest transformative change. Next slide, please. And so I think one thing that's really important with this pandemic is, if you can seize the moment for anything good to come out of it, is the role of environmental change and pandemic risk. The planet has sustained, of course, major losses in terms of ecosystem health. Next slide, please. And you can see some of these. This is a recent report that was done by IPBS. Major changes in ecosystem extent and conditions, species lost, ecological change in communities, 82% loss in biomass and species abundance since the 1970s. These are massive, massive changes to our environment. And I think, next slide, please. Adeptly reversing biodiversity loss in the face of development is key to the sustainable mandate that is within Sustainable Development Goals. And I think that is something that we're really excited about. We were just really fortunate to be awarded a new it's the next stage for PREDICT, but from NIAID, from the NIH's Institute for Infectious Disease. And what we're thinking of tackling in that, of course, is the environmental underpinnings, the species biodiversity loss that are huge drivers of emerging infectious disease risk. And this has been really central to the UN discussions. Next slide, please. That really start to highlight how environmental health and biodiversity are key investment in our future. Next slide. And I was really excited to see at the UN General Assembly that occurs every year in September that they really tackled, they had their first ever bio summit on biodiversity, their first ever summit, and they highlighted the importance of ensuring, in fact, reversing biodiversity loss as part of countries' goals in meeting the sustainable development. So that's all I wanted to share. Thank you so much. It was an honor to speak with you.
Thank you so much, Christine. That was very interesting and very timely. John?
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm going to talk in a little more focused, really, I suppose, on changes in the land-sea interface, which is one aspect of the emerging partnership with Chile in particular. This picture that you see in front of you is from Caleta Pichicuy in central Chile. It's a fishing village looking along the beach to an estuary or coastal wetland in the distance, which is filled up with water from the ocean and water that flows out of the watershed, and the village of Huaquen further upstream. And so the land-sea interface is really more than the coast. It's the interaction between ocean and land. So next slide, please. The Coastal Nexus is really a place where a lot of the Sustainable Development Goals interact. Obviously the ocean and the skimmer flying over the water there, the marine organisms are part of this. And obviously climate change, because the change is coming from 3 directions, from the atmosphere, from the ocean, and from the land. But it's also super connected to well-being and health. Actually, the interactions with Dr. Johnson and others, we looked at transport of pathogens from land to sea. But the well-being is more than that. It's coastal hazards and flooding that comes with sea level rise. And water is a critical link between these. So how you manage water in the watershed affects the well-being, the productivity of the downstream environment. So there's sort of a trade-off, if you like, that I'm going to talk about. So this links into food, of course, SDG 2, and a variety of other issues, including equity. At the core of the science really is this focus on the coupling due to water flowing from land to sea. So whatever water lands on the land through rain or snow, goes downhill and eventually lands up in the sea. Question one is, how is it changing, both due to local and global change? And secondly, how is this related to the benefits on the land? So if we're interested in food or health, absence of disease, etc., there are multiple benefits that you can accrue on the land or in that interface where the coastal wetlands and estuaries are, or in the ocean. Next slide. So this schematic here is really just, what I've said. The water flows from land to sea, but if you notice that I drew the schematic, the very steep coastline. So what this project, the broader project, this is only part of it, is really a stepping stone to a broader collaboration between in areas which are steep or mountainous coasts, like Chile and California, but equally well Portugal or South Africa, and places with seasonal rainfall, dry in one season and wet in the other season. These areas have perhaps not received as much attention as large Mississippi rivers and other land-sea interface regions. The benefits of flowing water, I think I've already said, can be accrued in the watershed upstream. We're most familiar with that as terrestrial organisms. We want water to drink, to bathe, but also to grow our food. But it's also in the coastal environments, in that wetland you see in the photograph there, whether it's directly food or materials for building houses, or indirectly through the ecosystem, which the wetland filters water and makes it clean, or the storm protection when the sea level rise happens and the storm happen, or out of the estuary into the open water, where that bottom picture you see the very strong importance of fisheries in California and Chile and many parts of the world. So next slide. It's changing. I think that's true for probably every topic anybody talks about these days. The changes come from two directions. One are local drivers, for example, development of the coastal region, which is excessive in California and in many places, but not everywhere. We're trying to figure out that some natural systems can continue to exist. The other is extraction. We catch fish, but we also take out water. We take out many things from the environment. But I highlight their runoff, because as you take water out upstream, then it has effects downstream. And we need to take a more holistic view of this. But the global drivers are the oceans are changing. They're getting warmer, they're getting more acidic. They're changing in many chemical ways. Ocean energy is changing. The waves are changing, the winds. And that's part of the weather. The weather, of course, is how much it rains. And so, again, climate change influences the amount of water flowing off the land, as well as the sea level, as well as many aspects of the problem. So the next slide shows a little schematic. If you look on the right there, 3 diagrams where the x-axis is going from 0 to 100% of water extracted from your watershed. This is just an idealized story here. And the y-axis is the value extracting. So the green might be the value to the land, which would be a green dashed line is 0 when you're taking no water out. If you live in a dry area, it's pretty difficult to grow food without a little bit of irrigation. As you take out more water, you might grow more food. In the top panel, that goes up sort of evenly, linearly, if you like. But as you take water out, the fish you might catch goes down, so the blue line goes down. You add the two together, you get a maximum benefit. It's a pretty flat line. Compare that to the next two, the middle one where the red line, the combined impact has a minimum, and the bottom one where the combined impact has a maximum. So the aim is to really bend the curve. How do we use water in a way that enhances the total benefit and not just the benefit to the farmer in the watershed or to the fisher in the ocean? So there's a trade-off is the key point here between benefits in 3 different environments. But it's actually a trade-off as well in the Sustainable Development Goals, because one action might increase food but decrease health and well-being, or one action might increase both of those but decrease your vulnerability to flooding and to hazards. So, of course, it's a complex system, as most of the environment is, and hence, again, the nexus of sustainable development goals cannot be really looked at one by one, can they? Or in one environment, just decoupled from another one. So I think the next slide is just spreading out. I'm not watching my time too well, so please, Camille, speak up if I go over.
You are getting really close. We'll give you just a few more seconds. Thanks.
Okay, this is part of a Chilean partnership we call Oceans, Ecosystems, and People along the west coast of the Americas. It's leveraging the similarities between Chile and California and comparable environments, anticipating expanding. The start is this institutional partnership with Católica in Chile, and there are these three themes I've talked about: that global change in land-sea interactions, but food from the sea, which we'll hear a little bit more in the next talk, which is nice, and One Health, which is the health of people and animals and ecosystems, which is related to the previous talk, are the other two aspects of it. But equally important is the internationalizing education, both for graduate students in thesis research and for undergraduate students. And I think that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Thank you so much, John. Nisha?
Hi there. Thank you for having me, and thank you to the organizers for putting on this really much needed event, I think. So as was mentioned, my name is Nisha, and I'm an alum of the Biological and Agricultural Engineering Department at UC Davis. I'm currently working for WorldFish, which is an international nonprofit research organization focused really on enhancing food and nutrition security and livelihoods in developing countries through fisheries and aquaculture. WorldFish is part of the CGIAR, which is a global partnership of international research organizations that focus on reducing rural poverty, increasing food security, improving human health and nutrition, and promoting the management of sustainable resources. Now, there's kind of like this whole idea that's been central to my life and my education and my career, which is to give back to the world what you take from it. And if you can, you give back more. And a big part of that for me means being part of the effort to achieve a better and more sustainable future for all, which is really the aim of the SDGs. So during my time at Davis, I was fortunate enough to work on a variety of projects with relevance to the SDGs. So I'm just going to highlight one of those right now, which was my thesis research. In that, I really just explored strategies to mitigate water scarcity for rural communities in California. Now, as mentioned, it's about mitigating water scarcity, and so it really revolves around this SDG 6, which is clean water and sanitation for all. But as previously mentioned, it's not only focused on SDG 6. I think it also touches on SDGs 1, which is no poverty, 10, reducing inequalities, and 13, climate action, to name a few. And I think that's something that we're going to keep hearing in these conversations, that none of these SDGs are independent of one another. They are all so interconnected and really require a holistic work and a holistic vision of the problem to achieve. Now, my current work at WorldFish, along with much of the research occurring there, is centered around SDGs 1, which is no poverty, 2, zero hunger, and 14, life below water, as you might imagine. So the global supply of aquatic foods now comes from fisheries and aquaculture, but there is a lot of concern about the current inclusivity and sustainability of the industry and its ability to meet the growing demand for seafood. So my specific research at WorldFish is really focused on exploring plant and cell-based seafood, which together we call alternative seafood, and their potential to help augment current seafood supplies. So really what we want to walk away with is kind of a better understanding of what the potential implications, opportunities, and challenges that alternative seafood may pose for food and nutrition security, livelihoods, and the environment in developing countries, and more specifically looking at Asia, Africa, and the Pacific. So it's a really brief look at kind of the work that I was recently involved in and currently involved in, but I have been so fortunate to be involved in really impactful research that brings together diverse minds from different disciplines and from all over the world. And I think one point that's really key is that, universities really are an important and valuable setting to look at these SDGs holistically. That's where we have kind of the collection of the minds from all over. And I think we really need to make sure that we capitalize on the opportunity we have, even though we're not all together in person anymore, but we can still do that within our university community. And with that, I just want to leave it with that the SDGs are really a framework to kind of help us as a community solve our most critical challenges. And I look forward to continuing my work for WorldFish and the CGIAR as a whole, and doing my part to ensure a better future for all. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Nisha. I really like how you made sure to outline all of the SDGs that you're working on, and that there's such an important framework. Now we will turn to Laura.
Hi. I want to thank Global Affairs specifically for the grant opportunity on this. It was such a convergence of what the goals of the School of Nursing. The Betty Irene Moore School of Nursing is actually probably the youngest School of Health Sciences in the graduate professional sciences. We're just having our 10th anniversary as opposed to 50th plus for the School of Medicine and Veterinary, some of the other health sciences, but we're a highly diverse faculty and students, including many international students and faculty. And we have a long history in those 10 years of community engagement. We're very strong in our local global intent already, doing immigrant and refugee clinics through grants, a HRSA grant around interprofessional education with the School of Medicine. And that's become really our strength, is how do we improve medicine through interprofessional education, which has proven to be the best way for access and quality care by team-based care. And then also we are very strong in community improvement projects and partners. Next slide. So the goal of the demonstration project came from my associates, Dr. Deb Bakurjian, Dr. Gerald Kayingo, who is now University of Maryland, originally from Uganda, and our newest dean, Steve Kavanaugh, who has experience in Kenya, and then my experience with a nonprofit group in Kenya for the last 20 years, was to really look at the goal demonstration project of how do we leverage the SDGs specifically to expand our intent of giving experiences to our faculty and students and research opportunities for experiential learning beyond our local global and out into the world. This was a part of alignment with the Global Education for All. The other thing is I teach in the advanced practice programs for physician assistants and nurse practitioners, which has been found to be a positive improvement in healthcare within the United States, but are not strongly used in some of the other developing nations. And in Kenya in particular, nursing lacks the respect and resources and collegial relationship with medicine that we benefit from at UCD. So we want to leverage our UCD resources, technology, and experiences, and then also to use interprofessional education for that. Next slide. So we wanted to expand the faculty experiences and student collaborations, and also to leverage some of our faculty's connections already in Kenya. I've had an opportunity to travel and meet with the University of Nairobi, and specifically, just as the other speakers have mentioned, we're not limited to how we impact on whether it be SDG 3 and 4. We really leverage out into every aspect, whether it be gender, whether it be health, water. We work with a nonprofit group that looks at agriculture in supporting and nutrition in HIV positive women. And so the intent was to really combine our collaborative efforts between the University of Nairobi, their students, to bring them together with the University of the School of Medicine and the School of Nursing to model the type of collaborative relationships we have at UC Davis. So the intent was to really look at how we could get at faculty attitudes within the UC Davis system, where we have a robust interprofessional education method of teaching and collaboration, and then survey University of Nairobi School of Nursing and School of Medicine to look at attitudes towards interprofessional education, because currently there's no collaboration between those schools, and then to really look at how we can target changes through joining in some collaborative efforts in clinical technical education between our school. We also want to provide a seminar on interprofessional education led by the UC Davis faculty, which it looks like we're shifting to webinar due to COVID. That's still we're working on. And then we also wanted to have a demonstration project where we set up an annual trip to Kenya to have collaborative teams with University of Nairobi and other universities, along with our NGO partners, specifically to give students experiences collaborative between the two schools. Next slide. So the benefit, the mutual benefit is really through, tackling the challenges of global health and wellness is really by building on these relationships. We really want to look at the mutual benefits by focusing on those SDG goals. We want to strengthen our dean-to-dean relationship. We want to collaborate in that joint research. And then we want to really focus on the mutual benefits that come within the SDG framework, looking at what is already going on in Kenya. You can see there's much going on around HIV, but really it's focusing now on the UN goals that are going towards chronic disease, which again, UC Davis has a very strong experience in that we can share methods of outreach and learn more with our students about the cultural humility through those experiential learning. And then go ahead, next slide. And then last thing is to really look at leveraging the current footprint that we already have in Kenya through global affairs and expanding those relationships. The Global Ambassador Program was really an excellent launch to move into our school and our dean's goal of going global and not just local global, and expanding upon our faculty being involved in that program. For collaborations, it's allowed us to build these opportunities for research and scholarly work. Also, we are looking specifically at engaging with the global programs for research within Kenya, which is part of the UCD program that supports research in Africa, but specifically is in Nairobi. And then really looking at how we keep those relationships going that we've built within communities already by multiple faculty, and expanding into the student experience, and also leveraging our Humphrey Fellows, which we've had relationships with and continued relationships who have been supportive of us, that we hope to continue to be on an annual relationship with. So we're building our ability to build in a variety of different areas. So we've had to put our travel on hold, but we're still telling our students and alumni and UC Health partners that we plan a go as soon as we can travel, which will probably be in 2022. And that finishes my slides.
Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone for sharing these lightning talks and showing us how research, teaching, and service is so critical to addressing complex problems, as well as the collaboration, also essential both globally and locally. Now, I will turn the floor over to Renetta so that we can have an open discussion about the SDGs at UC Davis. Please keep your questions and your comments coming through the Q&A feature and through the chat. We want to continue hearing about your SDG interests, opportunities, projects, and ideas, so please keep sharing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Camille, and thank you to all of our speakers. Wow, what wonderful opportunities we've had to learn new things about how research is connected to the SDGs. And so at this point, if you have questions, please post your questions into the Q&A, and we are ready to have a discussion. I'm sure that you have seen some things that are really interesting, some things that you'd like to learn more about. Maybe you even have questions related to how your own work connects to the SDGs. Any questions that are coming through? Looking forward to seeing more, and I am just checking to see if I see any. I haven't seen questions yet. Looking to see what questions we might have. I think some of the SDGs that we have talked about so far, I saw SDG 14, SDG 13, 3, 6, 1 and 2, SDG 14, 3 and 4, And so we are looking to see what kinds of questions there are. And one of the questions that has come through is very interesting. So I think this is actually to Joanna, Camille, and I. Why did Global Affairs, DEI, and the Office of Sustainability decide to join together on the SDGs, and how are you collaborating? And so maybe we should have just Joanna go first, and then Camille, and then I can kind of go at the end. So Joanna, please.
I think we're collaborating because we like each other. So that's very important. As you know, the chemistry is the key to everything. But the chemistry is also key to our planet, to our lives, to our engagements, to animals, to water, to energy. I put it on the chat at one point, how when we think about the zero hunger, how it really involves everybody. We all eat, our animals, our plants, our human being. So it's unimaginable that we could not work with the Office of Sustainability, but it's also unimaginable for me not to work with diversity, equity, and inclusion, given what's happening around the world, given how the social inequalities, economic, racial inequalities has emerged now. This is a pandemic. This is a pandemic of enormous proportion. So it's, yes, we like each other, but also because we are so committed to our philosophy and our agenda on the campus.
Thank you. I completely agree. I think we are all primed for collaboration. I think we're all people who come at our work with the spirit of how do we find partners. These are all very hard things that we're working on, and I personally believe that nothing hard gets done without lots of people collaborating to get there. I also feel strongly that there is no environmental sustainability without social sustainability, without social justice, environmental justice, climate justice. There is no social justice and social sustainability if we don't have a functional planet to live on. So these things are completely intertwined, and we must do both of them together. They cannot be kept separate. So that's my platform.
That's fantastic. And I just have to say that I was introduced to the SDGs at an engineering conference. It was actually the World Engineering Education Forum. It was in Cartagena, Colombia. And when I saw the SDGs, I was just floored, because as an engineer, I had not heard about them and didn't know about them. And in the engineering world, particularly in engineering education, every conference that I went to after that, whether it was in Italy or in Seoul, South Korea, or in Costa Rica, they were talking about the SDGs, and it wasn't something, I think like Gbemi said when she started, it wasn't something that I was seeing a lot of in the US. And I just realized that, wow, what an opportunity we have to tie research to the SDGs. And when we think about people from diverse backgrounds, they would really be interested, I think, in tying their work to something that's meaningful when we think about the world's challenges. When I came to UC Davis and had an opportunity to meet Joanna Regulska and learn about global affairs and her commitment to DEI, we were able to form an instant partnership. And so I really am grateful that she invited me in. And then meeting Camille and learning about what the Office of Sustainability was doing, what a great collaboration we've been able to form. And this is actually our second sort of collaboration and presentation with all three of our offices. And so we are just really happy to be working together. So thank you. There is another question, and that other question is, it says, all the speakers are doing exciting work. I applaud their efforts. How do they think we can increase our cross-campus and cross-UC collaborative efforts in support to the UN SDGs? So this is for our speakers who have had a chance to tell us a little bit already. So our speakers, if you'd like to turn on your cameras, we can hear from you now. So why don't we hear first from Dr. Johnson, and then Dr. Largier, Dr. Nisha, Marwaha, and then Dr. Van Auker, right in order.
Thank you, Dr. Tull. Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yes, it's just how can we talk more and hear more and learn more about the SDGs across campus and really increase our cross-campus collaboration as well as our UC-wide collaboration across our 10 campuses of the University of California.
Thank you. Got it. Yeah, I think that's why I was confused, because I think that's what you all are doing at Global Affairs and diversity and inclusion. I mean, we really rely on the sort of the campus resources for connecting us and making sure that we hear about what each other are working on. As much as we love to collaborate within our own university, we're often driven to collaborate at other places, whether it's around the world or even within other universities in the United States. And so it's really good that we have discussions just like today that can bring us together to remember that we've got like our nearest neighbors that are working on some of these same things and that are also the expert in the world on these very same things. And so I think that's really important. I guess from my perspective, I personally try to do that a lot through teaching. So we do a lot of collaborative teaching with the med school, with the nursing school, and with the huge strength that we have in ag and environmental sciences on campus. So we bring in, you know, whenever we can, populating our graduate student mentoring with our colleagues across campus, and working together on those fronts. But over to my colleagues for other better suggestions. Thank you.
Dr. Largier?
So I can't stop my video, it doesn't matter, you can hear me. I mean, we need to talk to each other, right? And it should be easy to talk across our campus. And the previous speaker and I have luckily collaborated between an oceanographer and a veterinarian by speaking to each other. And thanks to Pat Conrad who posed the question. So that's the place to start because it's easy enough to do in our community. And I think we do have global connections quite well. For me, the challenge is that we're not trying to optimize a single goal because that basically negates or neglects all the other goals. And I think things like the CMSI, the Coastal and Marine Sciences Institute, is the way we do it. We bring people together around a certain place and try and look at the food, the water, the climate, the different goals at the same time and how they might affect the same community. So, you know, I don't know how the SDGs are playing out worldwide, but that's sometimes I see people use it and they're pursuing a single goal. And so connect with the community in a place and pursue multiple goals because they interact. And there's probably win-win scenarios as much as there are competitive scenarios where you make more vulnerable to a hazard, although you're feeding the people. So that's what's challenging me. And that's why I think groups like the CMSI are probably really good and many others at Davis.
Thank you. Nisha, how do you see collaboration across campus or across the UCs?
Sure. I definitely agree with our previous speakers that definitely this kind of inter-campus or even within the Davis campus focus on research and teaching as well, and how do we collaborate with people in our network. But I think maybe I have a different perspective as well, looking at it from the student's perspective. How do we engage ourselves and how do we engage with each other, and how does a student on the Davis campus engage with someone on a different UC campus, or, you know, more particularly a student, and how do we figure out, you know, how we want or how we see maybe some of these solutions coming to life. And I think that this year I've seen kind of an explosion of youth initiatives with regards to the SDGs in general and many other issues. And I think that's something that we need to keep pushing and encouraging, that, you know, starting from undergrads. I've noticed this Millennials Fellow application pop up in the chat, and I've seen a couple mentions of that recently. But these kind of initiatives for undergrads to get them involved and excited about, you know, tackling problems like this. And also from a graduate student perspective, I think that a lot of graduate communities, we have a more tight-knit community because there's fewer of us. But then how do we kind of, partner with other graduate communities in different departments or in different fields or in different campuses, and how do we stimulate change and look at these solutions differently. So I think that's a good place to start, and I think that more conversations between students would be incredibly valuable, and a platform to do that would be so much appreciated, and I think we would learn a lot from each other.
Sounds good, thank you. And Dr. Van Auker, you're over in Sacramento in the School of Nursing, so we'll round it out with you.
Yeah, so one of the things that I want to kind of point out that I think has been really strategic on the part of global affairs and really ties into that relationships. One, the Global Education for All has brought all of us across campus that had some background and interest in this and gave us a structure to meet each other. And, being over in Sacramento, we're told we're off campus, it was an opportunity to say, well, we're doing a lot, in the health sciences. And our trips that we take individually give us serendipity, to talk to agronomists and medical engineers and to come back and connect them with people here, which I think the Global Faculty Ambassador Program prompted me to reach out to UCSF before I went on my Kenyan trip, so I could have an introduction, to the Research Institute there. So I think your programs are stimulating that. The other thing, it's given us a framework with Global Education for All to really inject it formally into our school. There's so many competing things in healthcare, but it also crosses so many things. It gave us a framework to say this is important too, and it's given us an opportunity to collaborate with other disciplines in a more structured way too. So I think what you're doing is really allowing us to respond to students' desires for engaging in experiential learning. And the badging system works for the graduate school. We need that. We don't need the same undergraduate type of program. So I think you're working on the things that I see making change.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much to all four of you. And unfortunately, we're not going to be able to get to all of the questions, perhaps in the way of having an extended dialogue, but I will mention them because perhaps Dr. Regulska can, as she ends the session, she may even touch on some of these. So there were some questions about seeing a lot about research and asking more about how we can take research to action through collaborations with change-focused community-based organizations and host countries. There's a new student, so welcome to one of our new students, a new student to UC Davis who asked how can they get more involved and learn more about the SDGs? I know that that's a opening, and Dr. Regulska is going to be talking about that. And then what can UC Davis do on its own campus to start to implement some of the SDGs? And so with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Joanna Regulska, and she will give us opportunities for involvement. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much. My goodness, this was such a rich, and the chat is so rich that I didn't know which I should go to the chat or to the screen. So I am having my cross eyes right now. Definitely. We're going to save the chat because there's just so much interesting information there and great questions. And what I loved from the last round of the discussion was that in fact, each of you brought another aspect into sort of more general strategy for the campus, the cross-campus, the cross-disciplinary, the cross-country, students, faculty, practitioners, bringing these larger questions into the practice. So I think this is really giving us a very broad forum. And of course, engaging with the communities around us, because I really want to remind everybody that SDGs, as much as they are global, they are local. We need to move the agenda of SDGs locally in order to make a difference for the global agenda. So there are all these intersections really that we do care about. I know also there was a question, and I want to specifically go back to it. One of the students asked about Sustainable Development Solutions Network for Students group. And I think Nisha already made a big plea, the agenda number one. how we can build up on the students. We have a very strong internship program already, as you know, but I think we can expand this more and work among our different offices and work with the academic units to build it up. So there was plenty to follow up. So I just want to quickly actually answer the question that Renetta has posed, and that is, what can we do on the campus? And I want to share with you some of the specific campus opportunities and involvement. So first of all, the big initiative, of course, is always funding, and I'm very, very thrilled and pleased to announce that DEI and Office of Sustainability will offer another round of UN Sustainable Development Goals grants for the faculty. This year, we're joining all three of us together. And the call for the proposals will be soon posted. You can look at the website for the past grantees, and we are opening the call very, very soon. We are also planning to open opportunity for faculty, students, and staff to apply for mini grants to support your participation and presentations related to SDGs at the virtual conferences. So this is a new initiative. We know that we are doing everything virtually these days, but the more we can participate, the more we can tell the story of your own work and our campus work globally, locally, it will be terrific. So please look up for more information within the next few weeks on the Global Affairs Sustainable Development Goal grants page. And this will be for your participation in the conferences. These days, yes, there are fees, but they are not always so big. And we are happy to work with you so you can contribute to the larger conversation, but then bring it back on the campus. So there will be some requirements. There's no free lunch, as you know. So we're gonna work with you. For undergraduate students, for those of you who are here with us, we are excited to offer new SDG quarterly internships for credit. We have piloted the remote internship in the spring 22, and Crystal, Juarez, and Jeanette, Laura were our first two interns, and now we have, as you know, Alex, Bella, Roshni, and Michael, and I really want to thank them for helping us and being with us together. So please watch for that opportunity. Look out for the applications that they will be opening at the end of the quarter. You can also get involved in the Sustainable Development Solutions Network. UC Davis is a member of the network. And there you'll see a lot of funding opportunities for your own research with other countries, conferences, resources for SDGs globally. And we are including the links now on the chat, so be sure you use your UC Davis email, very important because we are the members. And of course, please do plan to participate in our next SDG Forum in the winter quarter 2021, which is scheduled for February 11th in the morning. We are planning various ways to continue our conversation and of course keep sharing campus work on SDGs. If you have ideas or interests, please let us know because we are just right in a moment of planning. So we can do thematic, we can do with the different partners. There's numbers of different ways. If you would like to receive, of course, information, please let us know and we'll include you in SDG listserv. And all together, I just really want to thank everybody so much, and especially our team, Adrian, and the whole team behind the scene who put all of this together. So not only interns, but Adrian is somewhere there, and you heard her voice in the beginning, and she really put all of this together. SDG agenda is extremely urgent, far-reaching. It involves us locally, globally, and we want UC Davis to play an important role in it. And Gbemi, take the UC Davis message all the way to Korea and around the world in Asia. So thank you so much and for joining us today. We truly appreciate for coming together and finding new ways that we can work together on this important agenda. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.